Hello everyone. Today we'll be looking into nouns. Nouns are called myeongsa in Korean. So we'll be looking into the written forms, spoken forms, present tense, and past tense of the nouns. So where do you use written forms and spoken forms? Of course, as the name signifies, it is used in written and when you write and speak it, yes. But there can be certain situations where it can be a bit mixed up, which you'll get to know once you get more acquainted with the language. Still, I'll be giving a primary introduction into that. So before we go into our lesson, if you go into the description box, I have a link there for the material I teach from, and in that, when you download that, page number 44 is the lesson we are looking into today. So the written form. Written form, as the name suggests, it is used in books, newspapers, and any other form of writing. But it is not used even in writing when the writing is kind of conversational. It is not used even if it is written. And when you look into news broadcasts, which that means in the television or through YouTube, whichever visual media it is, in those kind of cases, even though they are reading out or speaking the news, very often you can see that the written form is used to speak the news there. So what that means is that when the information is quite literal, very literally, very literary complications are something literature related or factual or declarative, or if it is something like public speeches, things like that, written Korean, that form may be used, but it is rarely used in everyday speeches, everyday conversations, and all that. As for spoken form, you can see that in everyday conversations and most other visual media other than the news or anything declarative or factual. In those cases, you can see the spoken form used. And below that, you can see two tables given. These kind of tables, you'll be coming across these continuously through our different lessons. So I recommend that you get acquainted with the form of these tables. So we usually have two tables coming together, but that may of course change depending on the lesson we are talking about. So usually we have one side for present tense, which is called 현재 시제 in Korean, and the other side, past tense, which is called 과거 시제. 과거 means past and 시제 means tense. The same way 현재 means present. Then we have the positive form of that and the negative form of that. The same thing happens here. And in this case, we'll be talking about the informal forms of two words, sagwa and yeonpil. So sagwa here means an apple rather than an apology, and yeonpil means pencil. So we are talking about the written and spoken forms of these two words. So we'll see the first table. Present positive form, that is sagwada 연필이다. And past positive form, 사과였다, 연필이었다. It's given like this so that you can see how these words changes when present tense and past tense and positive and negative forms come. And as for the negative forms, 사과가 아니다, 연필이 아니다. 사과가 아니었다, 연필이 아니었다. As for the spoken form, and remember that it is informal, both are informal speech. 사과야, 연필이야. 사과였어, 연필이었어. And as for negative, 사과가 아니야, 연필이 아니야. 사과가 아니었어, 연필이 아니었어. So here ga and e is given in the bracket because in spoken form, as you already know, particles may be omitted a lot, and that is absolutely alright. It's completely correct to do that. That's why it is given in brackets like this. While the e given here as in 연필이다, 연필이었다, 연필이야, 연필이었어, that is not a particle. So it doesn't make it okay to omit that, and that's why it is not given in a bracket here. So when you say 사과다, it means is an apple. Literally means is an apple. As for the others, you can see the meanings given here. 사과가 아니다 is not an apple. 사과였다 was an apple. Okay, an apple cannot change into something else, of course. So these sentences given in this table and the explanations given here, they're literally correct, but they logically, of course, doesn't make sense. It is because these examples are given just for the sake of understanding how the grammar works. So don't think too seriously about it, and don't go ahead judging the logic and IQ of the person who made this material, that is Mr. Luke Park. So that's not the issue here, just it is for the basic understanding of beginners. 연필이야 means is a pencil. 연필이 아니야 is not a pencil, or it can be 연필이 아니다 like this. 연필이 아니었어 was a pencil. 연필이었어, 연필이 아니었어. So this is positive and this is negative. Was a pencil, was not a pencil. So if you see here, 사과다, 연필이다. 사과야, 연필이야. So you may be confused why 사과 doesn't have an E while 연필 has an E following it everywhere. The thing is, 사과 doesn't have a 받침. Since it doesn't have a 받침, it is just followed simply by the da. But if it does have a 받침, like in case of 연필, it is followed by an E before the da. So you know that da comes everywhere at the end of sentences, words, and all that when it is a written form, that is a dictionary form, when you're expressing stuff, and that's a normal thing for Korean. So da is always gonna be there at the end when it is some kind of written form. The same way, ya is a very informal form used between friends or people you're very close to. So the same way, 사과 doesn't have a 받침 here, 연필 has a 받침, so that's why after 사과 there's no E and it is simply followed by a ya, while 연필 has an E following it and then comes the ya. So if you need more information on how and why particles may or may not be omitted and how and where particles are used. That is the ga and e that you saw in the tables just before. I recommend you go back to those lessons and check it out so that you have a better ground knowledge before you get into nouns, verbs, and adjectives, because we are getting into the main matter of the language from this lesson onwards. Of course, the lessons, I don't mean the lessons we had before isn't important. Of course, it is important. But now on, you're getting the base materials to structure a sentence properly. So I hope you understood how that informality and that difference in tenses and how the grammar with all the interference from the buttons work. So we have more to this lesson, but since this is a bit of a confusing topic, I'll end the lesson here, and next week we'll look into the polite form, since this week we looked into the impolite, okay, you can't say impolite, but informal form. Before ending the lesson, I'll show you a small thing here. That is, you have 사과였다, 사과 아니었다, 연필이었어, 연필이 아니었어. So if you see here, you have something common here. That is the 상실. You have 상실 coming as bottom here. So most of the time when you have 상실 at the later syllables, almost at the end, everywhere you can see it is coming as second last. When it comes as second last syllable and in the bottom position, it usually means that that sentence or that word, wherever you're using it, is in past tense. So that is a trick you could use to differentiate things from past tense and present tense. So I hope that made things a bit more easier. So I'll see you with another topic, that is the polite forms of nouns, how they work, in the next class. Thank you.